I remember watching the speech and being like, oh shit, we're in danger. Well, I don't know if we have a louder voice. We just have a faster voice. What is good information, true information, factual information, researched, embedded information, and what is misinformation, meaning like wrong information that's going to lead you down the wrong path, or disinformation, which is.
You've been in this a bit before the internet.
Yes. You mean I'm old? That's what you're trying to say. Yeah.
No. Old. I'm also before that.
Yeah.
Do you see with social media and with the opportunity to voice your voice louder, voice your opinions louder? Do you feel that there is a chance for progress there, or do you feel it's being used more for as a weaponization of media to pursue more oppressive rhetoric?
Yeah, I think it's a both and. I don't think it's an either or. You know, I'm you're right. I'm old, and means that we have these terms. You've probably heard of these terms: digital migrants and digital natives, right? I am not a digital native. I'm a digital migrant. And what I mean by that is I was not born with a smartphone. None of us were born with a smartphone unless we're 12 or 16. But you know, we weren't born with smartphones. We weren't born with the internet. We weren't born with email, text, social media, all this stuff. So this is stuff we've come into over time, right? It's very interesting because I remember I got my first, this is like a very clear moment that in college, some people had email, but it was the really nerdy kids who had email. It was my roommate was a computer engineering concentrator. And so he was like on this thing in his room or in the computer lab that they called the internet, right? And I don't even know if we call it email, but whatever it was called then. And we mocked him mercilessly for being like such a nerd in the lab and like, oh, you're talking to all your other nerds on the computer because you don't have any social skills. And we used to mock him mercilessly. Now when you think about like mocking someone for using email, it's like, no, they were the revolutionaries, right? They were the vanguard. They were the ones who knew what the hell was coming. And so I got my first email address when I got to Columbia for graduate school in the fall of 1993. But in May or June of 1993, when I was a college student, I had no email. Email was the thing the nerds did in the lab that we made fun of. Then I got email and realized, oh, like I increasingly can't live without this. This is amazing. This is a revolution, right? Of course. And then that unfolds, and then you get phones where you can do things on phones, and then you get texting, and like and now we have social media, smartphones, and now the phones do everything for us because robots are making us all obsolete. So there's that, and so I've watched that and experienced that in the course of my lifetime. It's fascinating. I mean, when I talk about rotary phones or like landlines, my students are like, "What the hell are you talking about?" When I talk about Rolodexes, remember we used to put in the circular file, we used to put people's phone numbers, their home phone numbers, right? I talk about answering machines. So like, what the hell's answering? Like, oh, it's the thing before voicemail. Anyway, yes. So I've seen all of this happen, and so I have like, in that sense, I have a really long view about this, and I can kind of see and take stock of like what it's done, and certainly the changes, the revolutionary changes that have improved our lives, amazing. Right? I mean, I was talking about getting here this morning, right? I ordered an Uber. Yeah. I used Google Maps 3 times, right? I was texting my friend who we were staying with. I was texting Sunny to come to this location. I was texting with 3 or 4 people who were essential for me to get from one place to the other. I was texting with the person who was back home taking care of our dog in Boston, in Provincetown. I was on the phone looking at slides that I'd put for my teaching. I was using Google Maps and I was using Uber. Like I was using my phone for like 18 things this morning, and I was still late. And it's like, and that's just like, it's a silly little morning example of this. And so all of those things, I was late because I didn't book enough time. I wasn't late. I would have been later if it weren't for all those things. And all these things got done while I was doing. So huge advances, huge improvements, big value added to society. Where you start to talk about our relationships and our public discourse and the reliability of information or not, that's where things get a little bit or a lot darker. And a couple of things that come to mind. Like, first of all, you said louder voice. Well, I don't know if we have a louder voice. We just have a faster voice, right? Like what I type on social media is not nearly as loud as anything I can do with my voice in a room, right? But it feels that way because it's ubiquitous. It's really fast, right? it can cause a stir very quickly. It can
Exactly.
start a revolution very quickly, right? And so the pace of the voice, as opposed to the volume of the voice, is actually what I'm more concerned about, because shit gets out there before it's ready to be out there. Whether it's an idea, a political opinion, a thought, a headline, a rumor, right, a cancellation of someone because they said the wrong thing. All of that happens so quickly now that it's impossible to keep. We're always catching up, right? Even when we're leading the pace. And so that's a problem. We also know our attention spans are diminishing. I saw a recent study that since the advent of smartphones, which is less than 2 decades, our collective attention spans have decreased by 40%. That is not a good thing. And that means that we can't finish a task without checking our phone. It means that we have to be on our phone all the time, for good reasons and terrible reasons. It means that we can't pay attention to a lecture, like my teaching. I used to give an hour-long lecture. I can't do an hour-long lecture anymore. No one will pay attention for an hour, right? I barely could pay attention for an hour when I was writing things down in a notebook. So I just think that even in a discussion where we're like interactive and we're at the same table, there are people who are less checked in, or they're distracted in some way, and all that's getting worse. And then I think the most important thing, that's the darkest part of it, is that we are both more reactive, and we're quicker to react, and we also are less discerning in terms of our vetting of information. So on the one hand, someone posts something, you react to it, there's conflict. So conflict is created and sustained all over the place and it's gross. It's like too much, and that's ruining our politics, our ability, not politics, but our ability to have public discourse that isn't filled with disgust and disrespect. And then we have no processes of discerning what is good information, true information, factual information, researched and vetted information, and what is misinformation, meaning like wrong information that's going to lead you down the wrong path, or disinformation, which is intentionally designed misinformation to actually make you ignorant and to keep you ignorant so that someone else can control something about you, whether it's a company or a tech billionaire or an authoritarian leader. And so, those things, social media can democratize. It can be a kind of liberation technology because more people have a voice, right? Before people were shouting into the wilderness. Now, like if you have a social media platform, you can be an influencer. You can make money on that, right? For good, bad, and otherwise. So, but it can be democratizing in the sense that like lots more people have a voice and they have ready access to it and they can participate in some way, good, bad, or otherwise. But it also can be a repression technology, right, which like divides us more easily, which sustains the conflict more powerfully, which is able to be controlled through algorithms on the social media company tech platform side, or by politicians who want to keep electorates ignorant and their base subdued. And then, of course, all of the stuff that happens in real, like in major authoritarian regimes that like have a whole infrastructure and architecture that's been built for many, many years to spread propaganda, state propaganda, to keep people powerless and in submission. So it's a both and, right? It's a both and that requires us, if we want to have some kind of agency, to determine how we use it and why, and to what effect.
And also because all of this goes through some bottlenecks. Zuckerberg,
right.
Elon Musk, Murdoch.
Yeah.
Those are the people who control information and how it's spread across.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because when you look at the second row of Donald Trump's second inauguration, the front row is the whole Trump family. The second row were all the tech billionaires of both political parties, right? Some of them Tim Cook, Zuckerberg, I know at one point were Democrats, right? Musk, who knows what he is, right? And then Bezos, right? These folks. I mean, so the second row were all the tech billionaires. So to me, that was the most frightening thing about that inauguration spectacle. And there are many, from my perspective, many things that were troubling about it. But that was the thing for me. I'm like, you have a political regime that is back in power that has promised more authoritarianism and a dismantling of the federal government, and you have in the second row all the tech billionaires who built this, who are making money off this,
Yes.
and who control this, and now this controls us.
Yes.
And they're in the second row behind a regime that is delighted to be authoritarianism, who with a leader who thinks Putin and Orban
Exactly.
are the
exactly.
best examples of strong leadership in the world. Like, that is terrifying.
Exactly.
And I remember watching the speech and being like, oh shit, we're in danger.
Yeah. And yeah, absolutely. Just looking